Hey there, crazy blessed buddy. Look at you. You are fine. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Look at you. You are hot. If no one has told you that today, let me be the first because you are hot. And not hot, but hot. And I'm so excited that we are here today because we are talking about that fun, exciting, sunshiny topic of trauma. We've been talking about it for a while. So this is part 4 of the Crazy Blessed Show. This is our 4th session together, and it'll be our final session together. But if you have experienced trauma, that's what we're talking about, because over 95% of people have experienced some type of trauma in their life. So we are digging in because if you have experienced trauma, this is where you need to be. Now, make sure you go back, because if you have not listened to part 1, 2, and 3, oh, baby cakes, you are missing out. That is where we find out like the secret side of trauma. That's where we find out the 3 traits of a traumatized person. That's where we find out also how to break the pattern of trauma in our life. So make sure, if this is like the first part that you've listened to or that you're watching, go back, find it on YouTube, on iTunes, like find the podcast, find the video, find whatever you need, but make sure you get part 1, 2, and 3 as well. Now, we're going to dig in today talking about the 3 benefits of trauma. What? Are you kidding me? Hannah, there are no benefits of trauma. That's horrible. We're supposed to avoid trauma. Trauma's horrible. It's catastrophic. It destroys us. Honey, no. You are built for pain. I know that sounds weird, but just listen to me for a minute. You are designed for pain. Really, like think about it. We talked about this in another session, but think about like, why do we go to the gym? Why do people don't run a marathon because it's comfortable for their bodies, right? Like no one says, I'm gonna run a marathon because it just feels so good. No, it doesn't. It hurts, right? People don't go to the gym because, oh, it's just like a nice, cozy place to be and it's comfortable. I love it. No, that's not why we go to the gym. We go to the gym because it's painful. We sweat. We grandmas, we're like, this hurts. And then if you have a really good trainer, they're going to make you do even more repetitions of something that hurts. Actually, did you know that muscle is built from scar tissue? It's like when you tear muscle, then it builds up stronger and bigger than it was before. Just like kind of like skin, if you have a scar in your skin. I've got a scar right here on my hand where, okay, can I tell you this? This is kind of a funny story. I can't believe I'm sharing this with you. I have a scar right here on my hand, on my arm right there, because one day I was dancing in a box in front of a full-length mirror. I know, like just imagine that. If you're like having a hard day right now and it's not very fun, like let me just give you this picture so you can laugh and it'll lighten it up a bit. So there's a box sitting in front of a full-length mirror because we were moving that day. I was 9 years old. No, I was 8 years old. And so we're moving and there's a box and I'm like, in my brain, what would it be like to step in a box and dance in front of the full-length mirror? Well, you can see what happens. I'm dancing in a box because for some reason I wanted to see what that looked like. And the box tips over and I collide into the full-length mirror, bust the mirror, and I get a big scar right here. So it's funny because, well, funny story, like stupid story, but I just wanted to lighten up the mood, right? We're talking about trauma. Let's lighten it up a little bit, okay? But the scar tissue grew back bigger and stronger than my skin. Scar tissue is stronger. So that's what we do for our muscles. We intentionally tear muscle fiber so it builds back stronger and bigger. And that's why people who work out, you can see their muscles, they're bigger. Now, what does this mean for our life? Because how we do anything is how we do everything. It shows up in our life. How are we allowing pain to build us? Because if we have pain avoidance, because we talked about the 3 characteristics, like the 3 traits of a traumatized person, right? They're scared, they're skeptical, they're sensitive. They make themselves smaller, they protect themselves. What happens to a muscle if you continually coddle it and protect it? deflates into nothingness, right? It's like, I know there's a muscle here somewhere, but if we work the muscle, I'm trying. If we work the muscle, then it's defined. It shows up bigger, stronger, more powerful. That is your life, baby cakes. That is your life. You are supposed to show up bigger, stronger, more powerful in life. How do we do that? We have to learn how to use trauma as a launching pad for such an amazing life. You are not called. God did not breathe life into you for such a time as this, for you to live a small, protected, fragile life. I know trauma has happened, but now use the trauma and don't let it continue to use you. Use the trauma. Like, we can take a hand weight and bump ourselves on the head with it, or we can take a hand weight and learn how to build up muscle. So use the trauma now as the launch pad to create such a more powerful, strong, defined life for yourself and for your future and for your family. Remember, that's why we do everything. We're doing it for our faith. We're doing it for our family. We're doing it for our finances. We're doing it for our fitness. We do it for our fortress, which is our home. And we do it for our freedom. So we have to decide what to do. Now, we know how to break the pattern. We learned that in our last session. If you did not get that, make sure you go back and listen to part 3, right? Because I talk about how to break the pattern of trauma. Today, we're going to learn about what it looks like, the benefits of going through trauma. Trauma can be an amazing power tool in your life when you use it and not let it use you. And how it shows up is 3 ways. First, we become fearless. Think about whatever you went through. Like, a person who has gone through hell is not afraid to go back through it because they've learned what they're made of. It's like when you walk through hell and you come out the other side, you're like, wait a minute, I'm fireproof. It's like Shadrach, Meshach, and I was about to say Abednego. Is that right? Yeah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Yeah, I was about to say like some kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge, all the names. I don't know all the names. But anyway, so it's like they're thrown in the furnace. Scary, right? Traumatic, right? But then they come out, not even smelling like smoke. So that can be your life too. If you have gone through trauma, now you know what you're made of. And you don't have to live in fear. Isn't it amazing that these are actually the complete counter positions of the traits of a traumatized person? Number one was scared. But the benefits of going through trauma is fearlessness. You can live in fear for the rest of your life, or you can step back, put a different filter on the trauma and say, wait a minute, I freaking made it through that. I did that. And I didn't die. Think about the trauma. Did you die? Well, if you're watching this or listening to it, the answer is no. So I want you to say no. I want you to say no out loud when I ask you this. Think about the trauma. Did you die? Say no. Did you die? Say it again. No. Did you die? Say it again. No. You did not die. You made it through that. Sure, we have scars. Sure we have like burn tissue. Sure we have like the marks of it, but sometimes scars are the most amazing tattoos because they have stories attached to them. Scar tissue is more powerful than skin. Scar tissue can go through the fire. So you just realize what you're made of. And you can use that now, instead of living in fear, break into a level of fearlessness in your life. You're like, hey, I've been through it. Like, I know what it's like, and I'm not scared of it. Some things, when you're forced to go through it, like the idea of it is so scary. You're like, oh my gosh, if I have to do that, I am going to die. Like, no, you won't. You're stronger than you think. And then you go through this pain, you go through this trauma, you go through this crisis, and you come out of it, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm alive. I'm breathing. That was horrific. That was catastrophic. That was horrible. But I am breathing. Blood is still coursing through my body. Somehow, I made it through, and now I can operate in fearlessness. Like, you can't scare someone who has stared death down. You can't scare them. They're like, yeah, what you got? Because I've been back there. I've seen things that would terrify you. I know what it's like. You can't scare me, Satan. The enemy will say, oh, this is what your life is going to be like. Oh, you're going to live like this forever. And all of a sudden you're like, no. I lived it already. I ain't going back. I'm not scared anymore. And remember the second trait is you're skeptical. Or you can live in the benefit, because it says in the Bible that God will withhold no benefit from his children, right? So the benefit is, instead of being skeptical, we can be faithful. We can understand, wait, somehow God brought me through, even though it was horrible. Jesus said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I think it's funny when not funny, but I just think people, when you understand the character of Jesus, like some people pray and say, Lord, just be with us as we make this car trip, or be with us in this time. It's like, where do you think he went? He said he would never leave you or forsake you. He didn't go anywhere. But what changed is you. See, we can leave him, but he said he'd never leave us. So even in that pit, even in that trauma, even in that tragedy, Jesus was there. And if your heart was breaking, know that his heart was breaking too. But he also knows the benefit that can come out of that. And sometimes when we are not removed from the fire by God's hand, then God is allowing us to realize that we're fireproof. Always, always, always know this about God's character. He will always restore. He will always bring something out of nothing. He always mends, and he always restores with interest attached to it. So if Satan has put you through crap in your life, if he has put you through trauma, now it's payback time. It's like, no, that's all coming back. But it's coming back, you're going to pay damages too. You're just not going to restore my marriage. You're paying damages too, Satan. You're not just going to restore my money. You're going to pay damages too for lost time and opportunity. You're just not going to restore my home. You're paying damages. You're not going to just restore my career and my ministry and my platform. You're paying damages because it comes with interest. So understand, we can now have this level of faithfulness that we never had access to before, because we saw that God never left us, and now God will always be with us. So we can have this new level of faith and understanding, like, I am not doing this alone. I am supported. I am surrounded with heavenly forces waiting for me to command them. I am never alone. I can live full of faith. That's what faithful means, full of faith. And faith and fear cannot exist simultaneously. One has to go. So when we stare fear down, now we can pick up faith and let that be our go-to. That's our MO, our modus operandi, our operating mode, how we live our life. Because the just live by faith. How do we live? Say it, by faith. How do we live? By faith. Say it, write it, put it in the comments, shout it out loud to the heavens. I live by faith. I do not live by fear. I do not live by lack. I do not live by scarcity. I'm not a fragile person. I live by faith. So now you can have a new level of faithfulness in your life. And number 3, flexibility. Remember that the traits when you're traumatized, you're so sensitive, you're so fragile. Everything is like, oh, don't trigger me. No. Don't trigger me? What are you? What are you? A little like precious little flower? Are you a precious little rosebud? Are you a little petunia? No, you're not. You are ironclad force of God Almighty. You are not a little delicate flower, baby. You can be strong. You are not fragile. Don't worry about people triggering you. Be untriggerable. Is that a word? Like, because we're just going to declare right now, today on the Crazy Blessed Show, untriggerable is now a word. I want you, and you want you, more importantly, to be untriggerable. Anyone can do anything. Anyone can show up however they want. You don't have to be this way. You don't have to be that way. You don't have to show up with my expectations. You don't have to live out my agenda, because I am a force of God, and I am a force of good, and I show up in this life strong, powerful, resilient, flexible, because I've been through trauma. I know what it's like, and now I'm going to live in the benefits of it instead of the traits. I'm not going to be this handle with care sticker on my forehead, or like the sign on my chest, handle with care, very fragile. No, you're not. You're not delicate and fragile. You are powerful. You command your world. And that's when we can start speaking life. That's when we can start living it out. That's when we start showing up differently. In our marriage, we show up differently, and with our family, we show up differently with our friends. Sometimes your friends are like, I don't even know who this person is. He has changed. She is different. Doesn't matter. Don't sacrifice the life that God has created you to live so you can appease the people in your life who liked you the way you were. Is that okay? Do we have to please people? Do we have to be fragile? Do we have to be delicate? No. We can be strong. We can be flexible. Things come at us, we're like, we just do that little like ninja move, right? Like you just divert it. You're just flexible. It's like, it's not going to get on me. It's not going to get in me. I'm not moved by it, because I know I am a child of God. I am created for abundance. This is the life I'm living. Done. It's done. When you get to that place, you're like, all that pattern of trauma? No. I scrambled it up, right? We saw that in our last session. I scrambled it up. I can see the future. I am speaking the outcome. I am starting in that direction. And we hold this idea, it's done. It's just solid. I think about Ruth. Like, I don't know if you know the story of Ruth, but Ruth went through some trauma. Like, just like Mephibosheth went through trauma, Ruth went through trauma too. The only difference in these two people, Mephibosheth and Ruth, is Mephibosheth stayed in the pattern. He stayed in the BS, the belief system, right? Or whatever your interpretation of BS wants to be. But Mephibosheth stayed in the pattern. He could have broken it, but he chose not to. Ended up dying in the trauma. But Ruth went through trauma too. The only difference is she scrambled up the past. She saw the future. She spoke it out loud, and she started in that direction. And everything changed for her. If you know the story of Ruth, I'll tell you a little bit about it, but her husband had died, and her mother-in-law's husband had died. So now her father-in-law and her husband both died in this war. And Naomi, which was her mother-in-law, said, you know what, Ruth, like we're widows now. You know what the life for a widow was back then? It was like widows were basically like beggar, just like Mephibosheth was in one day designated to live a life of poverty, begging, right? Because he had become lame in an accident. Ruth, the same thing. One day, her husband dies and her father-in-law dies, and now she is destined for a life of poverty, living as a beggar, as a widow. In one moment, both of their lives changed. They experienced trauma. Mephibosheth stayed there. Ruth said, no, we're going to stick together. We're going to figure this out. We're moving forward. She knew, as traumatic as this life looks right now, I know I'm not going to live here. I know there are greater things for me. And she started on the journey. She took a step out. She would not have been able to do that if she did not see something better. She saw something. She told her mother-in-law, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking with you. In the Bible, she says, it's often used in marriage ceremonies where it's like, where you go, I will go, your God will be my God. Like, you know that scripture in Ruth? It's used at weddings, but it's actually a woman talking to her mother-in-law. I don't know how romantic that is. But so Ruth was saying this to her mother-in-law, no, I'm going to go where you go. Your God's going to be my God. We're going to do this together. She did not give up on living a better life. So she started in that direction, right? She did what was right in front of her. Remember in the last session, we're like, start in that direction. What is it right in front of you that you can change now? Is it, I'm going to print out my last 3 monthly statements so I can just see where my money's going. That's the step I'm taking now. Is it, you know what, today I'm not going to eat sugar anymore. I'm done. I'm done with sugar. That's my step I'm going to take. If it's about your body, if it's like your marriage, you know what, from this day forward, I am not going to complain to my spouse anymore. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. Maybe it's your family. You know what, from this day forward, I'm not going to yell at my kids. Maybe from this day forward, you know what, I'm not going to leave another load of laundry unfolded sitting in the laundry basket on my bed or on the floor. I just stepped on a lot of toes right there. When it comes out of the dryer, I'm folding it. I'm just going to do that. That's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start making up my bed every day. What is it that's right in front of you that is simple? Remember, we talked about God would never make it complicated. This isn't rocket science. It's right there in front of you. What can you do? So Ruth looked. She saw a field. She's like, you know what? After everyone finishes getting the harvest, I can go into that field and get the leftover grain. That's something I can do. It's right there in front of me. I can do it. Look, mother-in-law, you just hang out. I know life is tough for you too, but I'm going to take a step because I don't need you, my family, to support me in what I do. I hope some of you guys got that. Some of you guys didn't, but some of you guys got that. I'm going to take this step, and you're okay where you are. You don't have to come with me. You can stay there. Went in the field, started picking up the grain so they would have something to eat. But somebody was watching. Boaz, the person who owned all the land, was looking out of that window. He said, wait, who's this woman? He even asked his servant, who is this woman? He said, oh, she comes every day. She's faithful. She's flexible. She's fearless. She could get in trouble. Comes every single day to pick up the grain. Even though she's been through trauma, she's showing up in all the benefits of it. She's seeing the future. She's starting it. And he's like, you know what? Leave some handfuls out on purpose for her. That's actually the wording, handfuls on purpose. Leave some handfuls of grain out there. So when she comes, it's a little easier for her to gather it. When you start on this journey, God's going to give you a little bit of help. Sources are going to come in because you decided to walk through that door. You're going to find handfuls on purpose. You meet someone. A door opens up. An opportunity happens. A check shows up. Some things are going to happen that seem miraculous, but it was all triggered, right, by you starting in that direction. All of a sudden, she's living in the handfuls. And before long, Boaz saying, hey, you sexy thing, you want to be my wife? In one moment, her life goes from trauma to now she's ruling. Now when she steps out on her balcony and looks out at the fields, she's not looking at it like a beggar. She's looking at it as the owner. That's what God wants for you, my friend. He doesn't want you living in that pattern. Today is when you break out. Today is when you step up, own the field. Just start in that direction and watch God lay out handfuls and bring you into a position where you are operating in the power and the authority and the strength that you would not have if you had not gone through that trauma. I love you, friend. Maybe you're in a bad place today, but remember, you're built for pain. Leverage it, use it, own the field, and be blessed like crazy.